Hey everybody, 1:11 in the morning. I am here. I am committed. Who needs sleep? Not this guy. Bound and determined to entertain you. And we have yet another CALLOUS Draft League Finals draft. As you guys know, it's the purple team. In this case, it is represented by WraxiusGaming. She'll be our player one. And then we have Buzzed for the green team as our player two. Just an interesting fun fact, a tidbit. Neither of these players actually initially signed up for this tournament. These are actually both replacement players when people left on their teams. And obviously, it worked out because these players are on the two teams that are in the finals, but just as a weird coincidence because, obviously the pairings were not rigged and they could have been against anybody on the other team, the two replacement players that did not initially sign up happened to be against each other in the finals. Nothing to it, just a little quinky dink. Anyhow, let's get into the action. You guys know the rules by now. Like I said, Wraxius is our player one, therefore she's got the first ban, and she's going to kick us off, as her teammate did, in fact, in the previous draft, by banning Celebi. The response is going to be Tyranitar. As is often the case, Gengar going to be removed from Wraxius. And then, of course, if you're going to ban Tyre, you're also going to ban Meta. So that's going to go. I'm going to say right off the bat that I don't agree with Wraxius' pick. She's going to go with Zapdos, which I think is a good Mon, one of the better Mons in the format, a versatile Mon, keeps you open, all of that. In this format, Zapdos simply is not better than Snorlax. Period, full stop. It's more flexible. It's more difficult to hard counter. I'm not saying Zapdos isn't good. I'm not saying it doesn't have merit. I'm not saying it doesn't do some things better than Snorlax. But ultimately, it is not a better Pokemon. Lax is S tier in this format, whereas Zapdos, while I think it's good, is probably A tier, A minus tier, whatever. Lax is just better. So I don't agree with this pick. I think you absolutely should have grabbed Lax while it's available. And obviously Buzzed is going to grab it here, and hopefully Wraxius does not come to regret that and end up losing a game to the Lax. So the question, of course, is what does Buzz take alongside the Lax? Quite a few good options here since we are so early, and he's going to opt for Skarmory. So I definitely think Buzz has a better wheel here than Wraxius has a first pick, in my opinion. But let us carry on. So Wraxius is going to follow up with Milotic and Starmie. It has seemed to be a pretty common strategy for waters, bulky waters, to be taken in a pair at the same time. The Swampert Milotic combo is usually what gets grabbed, but specifically when there's Skarm on the other side, Rapid Spinners obviously go up in value. Also, Starmie is good against the Milotic that you're taking, and it's okay against Zapdos, but yeah, I mean, probably an overall better Pokemon, in my opinion, than Swampert. I don't know that everyone agrees with that. I think Starmie is just a little bit better in this format, though they do, of course, function pretty differently. But the fact that Skarm is on the other side, to me, if you thought that Starmie and Swampert were equal-ish, which again, I don't, I think Starmie's a little bit better, but hypothetically, if you think that they're equal, I think that the fact that Skarm is there would give Starmie the edge anyway. One thing that I don't love about Wraxius' start is that this is a strictly special-based team, and none of this stuff really breaks through Lax. So what could happen if you're buzzed here is you could go Blissey plus Regice, have 3 special walls right out the gate. That would not only choke Wraxius out of many of the good options, but additionally, it would really wall the crap out of these 3 Pokemon that she started with. Buzz is going to go halfway with that. Going to take Bliss, which is a pick that I definitely agree with, given the circumstances. The next pick, I don't hate either. Going to be Raikou here. A little early, generally speaking, for Raikou. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time, Raikou is not considered a round 1 pick these days. Maybe at the very end of round 1, but I feel like it's more common in round 2 these days. When this format first came out, people thought it was like Emerald Open, where Raikou is like a clear top 3 Pokemon. That is not the case in this format, as it turns out, but it's still good. But nevertheless, Raikou in this specific circumstance makes a lot of sense because it wins the 1v1 against all 3 of the things. that Wraxius has. So I would get, obviously, why you would want that here. So now Wraxius is going to go Swampert Arrow. That is going to give her the 3 best bulky waters in the format all at once. It's really ironic because, like I said, I just an hour or two, couple hours, whatever ago, did the draft of Vaz versus 48, and it was the exact same thing. Vaz in the player 1 seat, which is Wraxius' teammate, also managed to get all of my Lotic, Starmie, and Swampert. So not sure how much of that is just the seat or if they are comparing and talking and strategizing together as a team, or it was just a coincidence. But stands out to me like a sore thumb because I just did it a couple hours ago. I'm having a little bit of deja vu here. Obviously really good to have all 3 of those waters. Those are the 3 best waters in my opinion, so that is very good. Also, it makes the Aerodactyl that she just took that much better because, of course, one of the best counters to Aerodactyl is bulky waters, and now the options for those are lesser than they were before from the position of Buzzed. Though I do like the picks that he's going to grab here. He's going to go with Fori and Salamence. I probably would have gone Fori Regice instead. Salamence is into this lineup. All 3 of the bulky waters, particularly Milotic, but all 3 of these waters either can or almost always do beat it. And then both Zapdos and Aerodactyl honestly could beat it as well. So as good as Mence is, and obviously when there's that many bulky waters on the other side and you don't have bulky waters, you don't want your opponent to take Salamence. So, I mean, that's a fair argument, I suppose. But I don't think Salamence is all that great into Wraxius, whereas Regice cleanly beats 4 out of 5 of these Pokemon, and it would really, really choke her out of Special Walls. You can still take Registeel, which she very well may anyway, but I think having the 3 best Special Walls in the format all on the same team would have been a major advantage for Buzz. So I probably, instead of the Mence, would have gone in the Regice direction. Now, to be fair, that would have added a 3rd fighting weakness without a fighting resistance, so that, again, gives a little bit of merit to the Salamence pick. I don't dislike the Mence pick. It might even be my second choice here. I'm just really, really high on Regice, as in general. But the 4 is pretty good here. So two of the 3 premier spikers, I would say, maybe 4 premier spikers if you consider Glalie, Cloyster on equal-ish ground. But probably the 2 best spikers. How about that? On the same team for Buzzed, and then Fori obviously tends to beat Starmie 1v1, so reasonable start for sure from the player 2 seat, and then we'll have Wraxius wrap up the round. Unsurprisingly, she's going to grab Regice here. It's almost certainly getting, I mean, you're never getting it if you don't take it here. It's either getting banned out or your opponent's taking it, but this was her absolute last opportunity to take it, and of course, going to grab it here. I think it would be an absolute mistake and missed opportunity to not take it here. And then Moltres is going to be her last pick of this round. So doesn't want to play against that probably as the Regice drafter, though she does, like I said, have all those waters. But even more importantly, it's good against the Skarm and the Fori, and maybe to a lesser extent the Lax and the Salamence on the other side. Moltres is fine. I don't know if it's the pick that I would have made there. What I will note with the Moltres pick is that is now a 4th rock weakness in the early stages of this for WraxiusGaming, and she only has the 1 resistance right now in the Swampert. So I wonder if Buzz will try to take advantage of that and grab some rock attackers on a going forward basis. Regirock comes to mind immediately, but you know, also just fighters in general and things that can easily run Rock Slide without it being weird on their moveset. So we'll see how they both proceed from here, but unlike the previous draft in round 1 where I overwhelmingly thought that Vaz had a big advantage over 48, I don't know that I feel that way here. This seems relatively even to me. Generally speaking, player 1 is supposed to have the advantage after round 1, not only because you got first dibs on the Mons, but also you have an extra Mon. So player 1 is supposed to be ahead at this stage of the draft, and maybe she is, but it doesn't seem so clear-cut here. This seems a lot more even to me. I think there's still a lot more draft to be had, so excited to proceed, and it's going to be now Buzzed with the ban, keeping in mind that after these bans happen, he will, of course, have the double pick. So Pokemon that he is going to remove is Charizard, probably along the same lines as the Moltres, looking at things that it can threaten. Not only does it obviously hit the Skarm and the Foray just as the Moltres does, but it's even worse because Lax and Blissey could be on the wrong side of a Focus Punch. So I think Zard is actually even worse for Buzzed than Moltres was. And it makes me wonder if maybe Raxius actually should have gone the other way and taken Zard there. But the concept is the same. On the flip side, Raxius is going to take Vaporeon. I'm not surprised by that at all. She's trying to choke out Bulky Waters. She's already taken probably the 3 best ones. Vaporeon is almost certainly the 4th best one. So this is logical to me. And Buzzed is really going to be scraping for the B team now if he goes for Bulky Waters. Slowbro is the next one in line, in my opinion. But after that, significant drop-off. Maybe we're going to see a Blastoise in our future. We haven't seen enough Lapras or Walrein love, though of course the rock weakness is unappealing when you're against an Aerodactyl on the other side. Some people like Slow King. We'll see what Buzz decides to do, but Bulky Waters definitely going to be necessary at some point down the road. His next ban, Buzzed, is going to be Heracross. Banning fighters in general, probably a good idea when you've got Lax and Bliss. Also, Registeel is still floating, and I assume that's going to get grabbed sooner rather than later. So with that in mind, gotta compensate and get rid of some of the fighters that are threatening to those Pokemon. And then Raxius is going to remove Jolteon, which of course can Volt Absorb the Zapdos, is threatening to all the waters, is threatening to Aerodactyl, is threatening to Moltres. So both of those bans for Raxius completely make sense to me. I think both of her bans, she nailed it. I think they're both right. And we shall proceed. So Buzzed with the double pick. As I said, Registeel, unsurprising that he grabs that there. And then compensating at the exact same time, knowing that he's adding additional fighting weaknesses here. Going to take a Fighting Resist and a second Intimidator, which I think is a great pick. So this is probably the ideal 1-2 for Buzzed. I think this is the exact thing that he's supposed to take here. The Registeel is a 3rd special wall, and it leaves Raxius with not fantastic options for her special walls. She's also the same way that Buzzed is going to have to go for the B team or the C team for the Bulky Waters. Raxius is going to have to go for the B team for special walls, whether it's Umbreon or Hypno or Articuno or whatever. There's still stuff out there. It's just not as good as the stuff that's already been taken. Double Intimidate for Buzzed, very good, especially when it is very likely that at some point Raxius is going to start picking up fighters, as she should, because there are multiple weaknesses on the other side. Raxius here with a devastating 1-2 combo, I think. I think the Medicham and the Weezing are both fantastic picks here. The fighting weakness we already discussed. Medicham is very threatening into this lineup for Buzz. And then Weezing is not only going to protect your investment, the Medicham that you just took, but it's also a really good counter pick against Lax on the other side. I love that she made that pick. Weezing honestly should be taken this early a lot of the time because it is such an important role player and it hard counters so many things in the format. I really, really like the 1-2. I thought Buzzed also had a really good 1-2, but I think this is the perfect response for Raxius. I think she's drafting very well in the last few. I think both of her bans made sense. I think the Medicham and the Weezing are both really good. And yeah, this is spicy right now. I'm not clear who's ahead, so very engaged and very interested at the moment. So now back to Buzzed. He's going to take this in a different direction. He's now going to prioritize choking her out of spinners and winning the Spiker Spinner War as he takes both Claydol and Cloyster. Now, for those of you on the fence about whether you like Glalie or Cloyster better, and I think they're pretty comparable, I think the deciding factor in this case is that he's trying to choke out spinners in particular. So the fact that Cloyster can spin and Glalie cannot, I think, is ultimately the deciding factor here. So 3 of the top 4 spinners for Buzzed, and all 3 of the top spikers for Buzzed, and only the 1 rapid spinner on the other side. So Buzzed definitively winning the Spiker Spinner War right now, and has more special walls, so has those 2 checkboxes locked up. But Raxius clearly winning with the Bulky Waters, and almost certainly has more offensive threats right now, though there are plenty on the other side. The Lax, the Gyarados, the Raikou, the Salamence. So, again, unclear to me who's winning right now. They both are going for very different strategies and trying to monopolize different parts of the draft. Always an interesting dynamic. let's carry on. The response for Wraxius, an interesting one, not what I was expecting, so it's going to be Blaziken and what I would consider a pretty early Dusclops. I'm not the world's biggest Dusclops guy to begin with, but I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some element of future thinking here because Dusclops does shut off Claydol or Cloyster, or really probably Fori. It probably shuts off all three from trying to actually click Rapid Spin. Now, right now, there's no reason for them to click Rapid Spin because, crucially, Wraxius doesn't have a Spiker, which is what makes the pick puzzling to me. And there also could be a defensive element to it, and that maybe Wraxius does not want Buzz to take this Pokemon since he's got spikes that he can protect. So it could be that. But it's a weird pick to me when she doesn't have spikes. Perhaps that indicates that she's intending on adding Glalie or whatever spiker down the road. It also, like I said, could just be a defensive pick, but I don't know. I mean, Dusclops, in theory, against things like Lax and against Blissey has some merit. It does have really low HP. It's really good at pain splitting against those, but I might just be biased. I really don't think Dusclops is all that good of a Pokemon. The only way that I really like it or would see it played here for Wraxius is if she incorporates spikes at some point, but right now the Dusclops pick underwhelms me, and I doubt that Buzz was about to take that in the next round or two, so I feel like in a world where powerful things like Regirock and Dragonite are still floating, meh, gotta be honest, as much as I've liked a lot of the things that she's done recently, I don't like the Dusclops pick here. The Blaziken is interesting. She has identified fire as a type that she finds appealing against Buzzed. Fighting is also appealing against Buzzed, and you get the best of both worlds with the Blaziken. That pick, I think, is fine. Dusclops I'm not as excited about. I could see Blaziken with Dragonite, Blaziken with Hariyama, something to that effect. But those picks, in my mind, are clearly superior to Dusclops. On the flip side, Dragonite, a little bit late for the night, I think. A mon that you guys know I'm a big fan of. And also Steelix into, not bad. I mean, into Zapdos Aerodactyl is probably enough. Even better if your opponent happens to have double electric, which isn't the case here, but Zapdos and Aero is probably enough of a justification to grab Steelix. He maybe could have pushed that off for one more round. I really doubt that Wraxius was about to grab Steelix there. So maybe a minor mistake for Buzz. Maybe instead it could have been like Dragonite Hariyama, which I think Wraxius will almost certainly grab now. Or whatever you prioritize here. Dragonite Jinx, a couple other good things floating. But I wonder if he could have pushed the Steelix off a little longer. I think if he wanted it, and I agree with not letting it go to round 3, because it very well might get banned, but I think he probably could have grabbed Yama there, passed the Steelix back, and then just gotten it on the next double pick. So maybe a minor mistake for Buzz, but Steelix does have merit in the matchup, and obviously I like the Dragonite pick. That mon rocks. Unsurprising, Hariyama gets grabbed here. Like I said, maybe a boo-boo for Buzz to allow that to happen. This is way later than Yama should get picks. This is huge value for Wraxius, and this is something that Buzz could have, and in my opinion should have, prevented, given how strong Yama is overall, and certainly how strong Yama is into Buzz's team. And she's additionally going to take Alakazam. This is probably about the right time, end of round 2-ish. Against a Lax and a Blissey on the other side, it could certainly be better, but it's just a dangerous poke that tends to be a threat more often than not, especially in a late game. These are not the picks I was expecting for Buzzed, but gonna grab double Ghost here, so we're going really deep on the Ghost depth chart here. Obviously, Gengar banned out, but before we even hit round 3, we're seeing all of Dusclops, Mischievous, and Sableye on the board, which is not what I was expecting. The picks make sense from the Buzzed perspective because he already has Triple Spiker, or Double Spiker rather. Triple Spiker, I had it right the first time. Triple Spiker, and can protect those spikes with the Ghosts. For Wraxius, taking the Dusclops doesn't make a sense to me because she doesn't have spikes. So I wonder if she grabs Glalie, and now that we're here, I kind of wonder if Glalie simply gets banned out. I think that would be something I would certainly consider banning here, but perhaps they see it a different way. At the end of round 2, I'm still not clear who's winning here. It's been a pretty back and forth draft. I think they've both made a couple of minor boo-boos, but for the most part, they're drafting well. The Hariyama is really annoying me. I think Buzzed really should have taken that over Steelix there, but that aside, it's interesting because they're going for completely different things, and I wonder if Buzzed is going to get punished here by not grabbing Slowbro. I wonder if Wraxius will continue to ban out bulky waters that currently Buzzed does not have and really needs. So we'll see what they both do with the bans, but I think banning out Glalie makes sense if you're Buzzed because you don't want to give Wraxius access to a good spiker, and I think banning out Slowbro makes sense if you're Wraxius because you don't want to give Buzzed access to a good bulky water. See if they agree. First ban is Miltank. Sure, I mean, Thick Fat doesn't seem... It's okay against Wraxius. I mean, the Regice and the Moltres stand out immediately. The Blaziken doesn't count, obviously, because, yeah, it resists fire, but it's fighting weak, so that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Could take or leave it. I like my suggested ban better of cutting off the Vaporeon, but banning Miltank's fine. Buzzed on the other side is going to remove Houndoom. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Don't you want to pick Houndoom against the Alakazam? It seems decent against some of this other stuff as well. It's good against Regice, good against Dusclops, good against Weezing. I don't know. I think I'd rather take the Houndoom than ban it there. Don't know that I love that ban either. Wraxius is now going to ban Tauros. So again, I'll do the usual normal check. There are quite a few normal resists for Buzzed, so it would not be that great into him at all. Buzzed has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 normal resists, 2 ghosts, 2 intimidators, and a cloister. Yeah, Tauros is terrible into Buzzed, so she must be banning that simply because she herself doesn't want to play against it. So as far as her normal checks, she's got Aerodactyl, which counts as like half at best, and the Dusclops, which, sure, but like, same problem. Really, it needs to be a normal attack. Dusclops does not want to come in on spikes to a CBEQ, or of course, HP Ghost. The Tauros ban does make sense to me. So if I'm Wraxius, I would have gone probably Vaporeon plus Tauros. Kind of surprised that she lets the Vaporeon through. But as it turns out, neither player listened to me. Vaporeon wasn't banned like I would have for Wraxius. And Glalie wasn't banned like it would have been for me if I were Buzz. So both players think I'm stupid and they're doing their own thing. What else is new? Instead for Buzz, it is Dugtrio. Sure, he's the Raikou drafter, so like that might just be good enough. Additionally, kind of sort of Blissey, Registeel, kind of sort of Steelix. Dugtrio doesn't seem amazing into Buzz, but it's at least okay. Protecting your Raikou is certainly a worthwhile investment, especially against an opponent who's a little bit light as far as special walls. I could take or leave the Dugtrio ban, but again, Miltank should be Vaporeon, Houndoom should be Glalie. Missed opportunity for both imperfect bans, in my opinion. Going back over to Wraxius to begin the third and final round. She's going to go double Leech Seeder, which is pretty common, into Snorlax. She's going to go Ludicolo Venusaur specifically. In this instance, fair enough. I don't think grass attackers do anything particularly special against Buzzed, but Leech Seed against both Lax and Blissey, very desirable. I'm not a big Ludicolo guy myself. I kind of think that Mon sucks. I probably, if I wanted a Leech Seeder, would have gone for Sceptile. But regardless, Leech Seeders here on principle make sense. Those picks are fine. Buzzed, however, thinking what I'm thinking, trying to cut off the opponent in 2 different ways. Going to go Hypno here, which, meh. And also Sceptile. The Hypno, I think, is early. I think you could take that poke later and still choke her out of it, but maybe he's really, really determined to cut her off with special walls. If he really wanted to do that, maybe you don't take Sceptile here and you take Umbreon or Articuno, which I think are the two good ones that are still remaining. But trying to cut the opponent off of special walls, Hypno comes down here. It's not so much as a sleep counter in this case, as only the one sleep inducer in Venusaur. I guess technically it could be Hypno Milotic. Doesn't happen very often, but it's not being picked for Insomnia here. It's being picked as a special wall, which, I mean, is good in and of itself, and also trying to deprive Raxius of options. Like I said, Umbreon and Articuno both come to mind immediately if she feels it's important to have more special walls. And then the Sceptile, obviously good against all the waters, but also a protection pick. Leech Seeders against Lax and Blissey, real obnoxious. She's already got two. Trying to cut her off from getting more, though of course she could still take something like Breloom that is still floating. And she likes fighting as an attacking type against this team, so Breloom could be a great pick on a going forward basis. Regardless, that is not what she's going to do right now. She is instead going to opt for Jinx and Porygon 2. Jinx does have some opposition on the other side. Like I said, Lax, Blissey, Registeel. It doesn't blow me away in the matchup, but it's a generally high-performing poke. As far as being set up against Jinx, Buzzed is probably as reasonably loaded as somebody's going to get other than having a Dugtrio, so probably can neutralize it. We probably won't see a Jinx sweep in this one, but still a good poke, very worthy of taking, even if your opponent does have pretty good walls, pretty good ways to check it, at least on paper. Porygon 2, I always do a trace check, so what are we tracing on the other side? Levitate, and not much else, honestly. I'm not sure on the Porygon 2 here. I don't know. It's not like it's that great against Raxius either, so it's not like she's really protecting some of her own stuff. Water Absorb, Volt Absorb, banned out. Flygon not yet taken. It's kind of just the Claydol. I wonder if the Porygon 2 is just cutting off bulky waters, quote-unquote, from Buzzed, who I'm surprised hasn't taken Slowbro yet, by the way. I could take or leave the P2. I mean, even without abusing Trace, it's still a fine Mon. T-Wave Recover Bolt Beam is just a cannot go too far wrong kind of set. But I can't help but wonder if there's something better. I mean, noting that things like Regirock, for example, are still out there. Umbreon's still out there. I wonder if there's something better that could have been taken over Porygon 2. So I neither love nor hate the pick, but it will suffice. On the other side, Buzz does finally grab Slowbro, better late than never. I still definitely think that Raxius should have banned that out. I think earlier I was saying Vaporeon. I think I misspoke. I meant Slowbro. Hopefully you guys know what I meant. Glalie still floating out there as well, which is interesting. And then additionally, Buzz is going to take Breloom here, which I think is wise. That's a Pokemon that I think could have benefited Raxius for sure. Probably a missed opportunity by taking Ludicolo or Porygon 2 or whatever when it could have been Breloom instead, because it's the same benefit as far as Leech Seed, but you also get Broken Spore and you get a fighting attacker, which is reasonably good against this team. It's not as good as it was, though. I mean, there is Salamence, Gyarados, Claydol, Double Ghost, now Hypno, now Slowbro on the other side, so fighters are certainly starting to lose their luster. But yeah, I mean, Buzz is going to take not only Breloom, because again, Spore is just broken, but additionally, really trying to protect Lax and Blissey from Leech Seeders if at all possible, hence the Sceptile and the Breloom both being picked up recently. So Raxius with an incredibly late Regirock here. This thing should never make it to mid to late round 3. That just should not happen. So somebody or both of them screwed up somewhere for this to even be possible. Not something that should happen. Mega, mega, mega value for Raxius getting it this late. And then additionally, she's going to pick up Gardevoir. Seems to be a pretty popular poke as of late. I don't think I really love it in this particular matchup. Again, like Porygon 2, I look for Trace. In this case, Trace does not have a lot of relevant targets, as we already discussed with the P2 pick. And then as far as just being a special sweeper, I think by and large, Buzz does have the tools to neutralize it. So not blown away by Gardevoir. It's a very versatile Mon, does have some surprise value, but I think probably Buzz is going to be able to neutralize that. But the Regirock pick this late I think is crazy, crazy good. And like I said, that Mon should not have still been available. So good for her to pick up on that. very, very late in this draft. Buzzed with a poke that I think is not great and a poke that I think is like as ungood as it gets. Espeon is like playable, but does not excite me in any way. And Slaking, as you know, is a mon that I just don't rate. So don't love those picks from the Buzz seat. I think that, again, Glalie is still floating, and I think that a bulky water, very much needed for Buzzed. I think I would have picked up Blastoise or something here. I certainly like Blastoise and Glalie just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's other things too, but I like both of those Pokemon better than both of these Pokemon. Espeon, like I said, playable. Not a mon that's ever blown me away, but it's like okay. Slaking, I think, just blows all the balls, but hey, prove me wrong. Load the Slaking, get some kills, see what you can do. So Wraxius finally wrapping this up with Entei and Magneton. We'll just talk about the Magneton first because it's very straightforward. She's against the Skarm Drafter. It didn't get banned out. 1 in 3 chance to cheese the crap out of that thing if you even bring the Magneton, which honestly, she probably won't unless it gets to like a Game 3 situation in which Skarm still hasn't been brought. In that case, maybe it's good to have the Magneton in the back, but she probably simply won't bring it. Seemingly, people prefer Entei over Arcanine. I really disagree with that assessment, and I strongly prefer Arcanine. I think Intimidate is super valuable. I think Extreme Speed is valuable. I think their stats are comparable. You don't have Calm Mind, but I prefer Arcanine for sure. I seem to be in the minority with that, so here is Entei. Entei seems fine, reasonably good against Buzzed. Not a mon that I'm generally excited about, but perfectly playable, has been picked a lot lately, so Entei is going to be on the team for Wraxius. That is her 3rd fire attacker if she still thinks that that type is where she wants to be. And then Buzzed is going to finish us off with Umbreon, a Pokemon that I like very much, and a Pokemon that I think is way better than being the literal last pick in the draft. But then again, know what else is better than being the literal last pick in the draft? Things that didn't get drafted at all. Like Glalie, like Kangaskhan, like Flygon, like Donphan, like Blastoise. And this is yet another one where Wraxius just could not be bothered with spinners. It might be correct in this instance because it's really hard to spin through double Ghost. Now granted, when the only spinner on the entire other team from Buzz's point of view is the Starmie, I question whether or not you even bother bringing the Ghosts. They're a lot better if Wraxius had tried to pick the Blastoises, the Donphans, whatever of the world, but the fact that she only bothered bringing one spinner and you have Triple Spiker, I don't even know that I'd bother with the Ghosts. I might just play it out normally and accept that in 2 out of the 3 games, you're going to have spikes that your opponent can't remove. That seems good enough to me. But that kind of makes it awkward, though. If Buzz doesn't bring the Mystery Vest and the Sableye, then that means some of the Espeon, the Slaking, the undesirables of the world are going to have to make the team. But I don't know. I think cutting one or both Ghosts plus the Slaking is a perfectly acceptable pool of mons to work with from the Buzz point of view. And like I said, kind of surprised that Glalie never got picked up here, but not the end of the world. So who won this draft? That is an interesting question. My inclination is that Buzzed won the draft. I also think that Wraxius, probably, just based on the eye test, seems like the better player, so that does factor in here, but I think at a glance, I feel like Buzzed had the better draft. The one biggest thing that Wraxius has going for her is the bulky water dominance. Milotic, Starmie, Swampert all on the same team is rock solid. Can't go too far wrong. That is probably the biggest strength of her draft. I don't think her round 2 or her round 3 as a whole. They both had really good pieces. I thought the Metacham Weezing pick was really, really good. I thought the late Yama was awesome value. I thought the late Regirock was awesome value. So there were bits and pieces in each of the rounds that I liked. But I thought the rounds as a complete whole no, they weren't bad, but they weren't exciting either. They were okay. They were fine. As far as Buzzed is concerned, I think that having a blatant special wall advantage with all of Snorlax, Registeel, and Blissey is very good. Granted, Raxius does have 3 fighters to try to crack through that, but I think that Buzzed has unusually good counterplay to fighters. Not normally the case, but having all of Salamence, Gyarados, Claydol, Dragonite, Double Ghost, and maybe there is merit to bring the Ghosts just for the fighters, Hypno, Slowbro, Espeon, there's a whole lot of fighter hate on the other side. So even though fighters have a clear role for Raxius Gaming and have clear upside, I think Buzzed by and large can handle them. So Buzzed with the clear advantage as far as special walls. Buzzed also dominating the Spiker Spinner War, so those things are good. But Raxius with the obvious bulky water advantage, and frankly both players have at least a handful of Mons that I personally would not be all that excited to play, but they're not total garbage Mons. They're just like, you know, the Sableyes of the world, the Slay Kings I hate, but like it's playable. And same thing on the other side. Like Gardevoir and Entei aren't bad. They just don't excite me. Ludicolo, another one that I don't really rate very highly. It's very hard to say, especially I'm conflicted because, like I said, I think maybe Buzz had a slightly better draft, but not like world-beatingly so. But I think, based on what I've seen, that Raxius is probably a little bit of a better player. So it's difficult to predict when you think the person who is the superior player did not have the superior draft. Kind of hard to balance that out. I don't think that Buzz crushed her in this draft, but I do think if I had to look at one side or the other, I think I would rather have the stuff that Buzzed has than the stuff that Raxius has. I'm going to stick with my guns and just, I'm going to say Buzzed, but it wouldn't surprise me if Raxius played better and built better and managed to get there anyway, even if I think I would rather have the tools that Buzzed has than Raxius has. So I don't feel super confident in that prediction the way that I have in some of the ones in the past, but that is going to be my prediction. I'm going to go with Buzzed in this one, but super open to being wrong. Raxius seems like she's reasonably good at the game and can maybe make some plays and take care of business. But we have a comment section for a reason, so as always, you guys are more than welcome to let me know what you think of my commentary and what you think of this draft. Always curious to have predictions and let me know, yeah, who's going to win and why. Always good to read. I really do read every comment that I get, even the ones that I don't like. What a world. Anyhow, I appreciate you guys. Almost 2 in the morning, so probably going to head to bed. But I'll get this on YouTube before bed so you guys can enjoy it. And there will be more CALLOUS Draft League in the near future. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.